Raya and the Last Dragon is a bit of a controversial Disney movie, with many deriding it as a ripoff of Avatar: The Last Airbender. To me personally, Avatar does not own a monopoly on the concept of taking East, South, and Southeast Asia and turning them into a world. Hell, even places distinctly not in Asia, called Iceland, did inspire certain set pieces of Avatar. Saying that Avatar somehow owns the concept is like saying Tolkien has a monopoly on the various European mythologies he used to create his works. But trust me, I have plenty to say about Raya and the Last Dragon, so let's dig into it, shall we? We open with Raya, riding on this pillbug armadillo pug creature thing named Tuk Tuk as she's going through a desolate area of Kumandra, a land that has seen much better days. Long ago, Kumandra was the land of dragons who brought rain and prosperity, but everything changed when the Druun attacked and began consuming everything and everyone. Sisu pulled the dragon magic together to defeat the Druun, but this was the cost of it. The world was restored, but the dragons were not. Humanity, being humanity, decided to divide itself, and the gem was hidden away in the Heart Tribe's lands. Yet the world wasn't broken. Not yet. We see young Raya training to become the next guardian of the Dragon Gem by her chief/father, Benja. While Benja is convinced that Kumandra will one day reunite, we'll see why this is a pipe dream in a second. We get a rundown of the other four tribes: Spine, Fang, Tail, and Talon. Raya is from the Heart Tribe, remember? We get to the main. In a gesture of goodwill, the Heart Tribe invited the other tribes over for a feast, with Raya befriending Namaari of the Fang Tribe. However, as these stories go, this is a power play by Fang. Other tribes then find out where the Dragon Gem is because subtle assassins Fang Tribe is not, and this leads to the shattering of the Dragon Gem. So the Black Smoke Monsters decide to return because messing with power that has held back the monsters that consume human souls and petrifies people and destroys land apparently isn't a good enough reason to keep the status quo. Rather than reassembling the one thing that can hold back the not heartless, the other tribes squabble for the pieces instead. They try to get away. One of the things the Druun are repelled by, besides the Dragon Gem shards, is water, since we established that the dragons brought the rains. We cut to several years later. Raya has attempted to find the last dragon and restore the world. She does finally manage to summon Sisu, who isn't exactly the mighty dragon of myth, but rather a comic relief character portrayed by Awkwafina. And while I find this movie to be unfunny, I do find this line, "Is that supposed to make me feel better? If you lost a puppy, and I said, well, at least we have a big chunk of it, would that make you feel better?" Sadly, it's followed up by a pretty unfunny joke about group projects and getting the same grade. Where do I begin with the humor of this movie? The humor in this movie is really, I don't want to say childish as an insult, but honestly, a lot of it comes from Sisu's general naivete, and it's not funny, it just makes Sisu look stupid, even though she's also supposed to be somewhat of a wise character at the same time, and she's the one delivering the theme. You kinda don't want the comic relief character who's really naive also deliver your theme, because that kinda makes your movie's theme look very hollow. After Sisu assimilates the power of this specific shard of the Dragon Gem, Raya and Sisu have a new mission: unite the gem pieces, drive back the Druun. Meanwhile, Namaari is hunting them too. Apparently, the Tail Tribe chief was so dumb she fell victim to her own trap by trying to hide the gem. Well, points for karma. This gem gives Sisu the power to shapeshift into a human. There's also Namaari. I will note that Namaari refers to Raya as Depla multiple times. My Vietnamese is not great despite my last name being Nguyen, but I still recognize Dep as beauty, but La confuses me because it always comes off as screaming whenever they say it. I guess they could mean strange beauty, like Ve Dep La Lung or something like that. Again, my Vietnamese isn't that great. Chase time. They end up on a boat with a boy named Boone. Sisu uses her swimming ability to make the boat turn into a motorboat, basically, and in a quieter moment in the film, Namari orders her oversized cat mounts to trot before the Valley of Dragon statues. It's nice seeing little nuances like this, seeing that her reverence for the dragons wasn't complete bunk, which makes what happens later in the film more grating. The Druun are active at night as well, because, creatures of darkness. As established, they're weak to water, since water is the domain of the dragons, and thus this is why Boo never leaves his boat. So, according to Sisu, the Druun are monsters born from human discord and are always present but ready to strike. I swear, this is the easiest property to adapt into Kingdom Hearts 4. Nomura, get on it. They are in Talon now, which is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I'm not joking, by the way, they flat out call this place Tatooine in the art book. So, a big twist in this leg of the film is Dong Hai, who is from the beginning of the movie. He isn't the chief, it's Dong Hu, who is his mother. While that gem gets stolen, we meet with the chiefess of the Fang tribe, Verana, and Fang isn't doing too hot. Sure, they look nice, but they are depleting their land and space pretty quickly. They have imperial ambition. Meanwhile, Sisu's too trusting nature gets Raya and Sisu captured by the last of the Spine tribe. So, this is an excuse not to animate more of them. This was made over COVID after all. While Raya confronts Namari, Raya is defeated. Namari's there to claim the gems with an army because that's the whole thing with Fang. They're dirty pragmatists who want their reputation better, specifically Namari as well, because she's kinda held responsible by the other tribes for causing the apocalypse, even though they're also culpable of it, but let's ignore that for a moment. Fang soldiers are defeated when they get freaked out by a dragon-breathing mist. So, Sisu's idealism is honestly at this point grating. Her whole plan is to simply ask nicely for the gem while Raya wants to steal it. And Raya is taken back to the Heart Tribe by Sisu, what's left of it at least, and reveals how the dragons pull together their powers and the power of trust. I'll get more into this theme later in the movie, but it is really grating with how much the power of trust is beaten over our heads, even though nothing is done to merit the power of trust so far. Back in the Fang tribe, Namari seems adamant about wanting to fix the world. Here's the issue. Chiefess Verana is a bit more concerned over the other tribes tearing Fang apart. Why? Because if Sisu and the Dragon Gem is on their side, it means that they would be considered saviors of the world and have divine merit, I guess. But if Sisu is on Raya's side and they do this independent of Fang, the other tribes will rip Fang apart because no divine protection and everyone blames them for this whole debacle in the first place. Outside the Fang capital, Namari meets Raya and Sisu with the Dragon Gem Shard. We have our next issue with this whole trust. This was deception as a whole. While Sisu is able to talk Namari down, kinda, Namari's finger is still tightening on the trigger. Namari accidentally shoots Sisu after Raya's intervention. And with the last dragon gone, the waters begin fading because that's the domain of the dragons. And of course, the Druun are happy to eat all of humanity. The apocalypse will come, but before it does, Raya fully intends to take Namari's head, and Namari is at the palace. She also probably wants the chiefess's head because she kinda ordered this whole scheme. But, the chiefess is currently petrified, so Raya ends up fighting Namari and wins, though she doesn't kill her. They do manage to fight the rising tide of the Druun, Namari even joining them, and then the gem is reunited. The water returns, the people return, and the dragons return. Happy ending. And that was Raya and the Last Dragon. As a movie, it is a perfectly adequate fetch quest. The dragon gem is broken, and the characters must gather the shards and reassemble the gem. The problem is just how this plot works. It thematically falls apart with Sisu, who seemingly mistakes trust with naivete. Not helped by Sisu's backstory message about trust involving her siblings, aka people she has a bond with and has every reason to trust. Sisu repeatedly walks into traps because she's naive, not trusting. If this movie was about Raya being more open to trusting people rather than just blindly trusting them, I think this would be a much better movie. You can trust people for many reasons: common enemy, shared experiences, specifically loss, pragmatism. Raya did trust someone once, Namari, and Namari turned out to be a massive parasitic leech. And this leads Raya to believe that everyone is a parasitic leech. It's a matter of time. For crying out loud, her first interaction with Boone was that, okay, are you serving us poison, when he feeds them food? And Sisu basically had to go on and say, yeah, no, I'm eating this. This isn't poisoned at all. It's honestly a mature concept to explore. To have your past pain go from being an explanation as to why the way you're acting the way you are, and then having it morph into an excuse for your current behavior. Honestly, this premise would be so much better if Namari wasn't involved in this, or at least is written better, because the whole thing falls apart with her. We can see the nuances in her character in scenes where she's away from Raya. The problem is that Raya is not in these scenes. It's hard to trust someone who basically opened Pandora's box, has repeatedly tried to harm you as the protagonist, and even her final actions could be read as pragmatism rather than anything redemptive. She really doesn't have a change of heart in front of Raya. Even though we, the audience, can see the nuances of her character, the in-universe people really don't. And even out of universe, it kinda is hard to look at Namari and see, oh, she legitimately feels guilty for this action, even though she hasn't exactly made any attempt to get the gem shards herself in order to restore the world and those who were lost, even on Fang's terms and conditions. Even her restoring the gems can come off as pragmatic rather than any change of heart. This happy ending really doesn't feel merited by anyone. Sure, stopping the Droon and banishing them back with the whole Dragon Gem Shard reassembling, fine. But restoring the dragons? Restoring the land? No. As for the land of Kumandra, I'm a bit underwhelmed. I don't mind the cultural blending to make a fantasy world, just don't try to advertise it as Southeast Asian representation, and then just blend all the cultures beyond recognizability. The big problem with Kumandra is just how underdeveloped everyone is. This movie is a fetch quest, and this whole thing that matters most are the gem shards, not the environments they're in. For example, the Spine Tribe, just one guy. We really do not get to experience the world at all, beyond the surface level, and everyone comes off as very tropey nations of hats. The Spine is full of the warriors, the Fang is full of the pragmatists, the Tail is full of the assassins, and the Talon is full of thieves. If we were to make the story go a little bit more in depth, then I would say it would help, but it won't cure. Hell, one small change I would make is have each of the Dragon Gem Shards be embedded into things that are sacred to each of these tribes. Obviously, we do this to some extent with the Fang being pragmatists and thus like their authority, top down, which is why a staff or a scepter would be fitting for them. This change wouldn't fix the movie, but it would help remove the very homogenized, very painted backdrop feel of all these locations. Speaking of backdrops with no personality or little personality, let's talk about the Droon. Where do I begin with this? I made my Kingdom Hearts joke when Sisu mentioned they embodied discord within humans, but here's my problem with the Droon. Humanity in this film is so stupid that the Droon come off as almost karmatic. Sure, Chief Benja is a good person, and a bunch of no-names also get petrified, but characters like Namari's mother, well deserved. You're the problem. You're the one who put us in this situation to begin with, and your pragmatism, quote, pragmatism, end quote, is not helping at all. It's making everything worse. It ended with a dragon being killed and all the water nearly being destroyed. Deng Hai, you know, one of the guys who looted the Dragon Gem Shards, well-deserved petrification, and it's even worse because he got betrayed by his mother. Totally deserved, but still. In fact, Of all the people with the Dragon Gem shards in this image, 3 get petrified, 1 gets killed by accidentally starving to death, and 1 actually tries to solve the issues. The Druun are karmatic at this point. Concept art for the Druun is also much cooler than the generic smoke monsters we get. I almost felt that these concepts were familiar. Oh. So much for me not trying to make comparisons to The Legend of Korra or Avatar The Last Airbender. I will say this, I will be surprised if these things do not end up as concept art for Kingdom Hearts mobs in the future, because heaven knows Nomura needs more Heartless designs. And I think if we do Raya and the Last Dragon, we'll get these as Heartless designs. Overall, this movie could have been better. The theme of trust is good, but it's restrained by a plot that tries to equate being super naive with trusting and have that be a good thing, despite all instances in the movie portraying it as a bad thing. And then there's the very unearned ending in and of itself. The humor to me is hit or miss. I find it mostly unfunny. Visually, I find this stunning. I like the breathtaking visuals, but what holds them back is just how difficult it is to get emotionally tied to these areas when they are really just backdrops in a fetch quest. Some places like Spine don't even get much in the way of visuals. Overall, this movie is okay. It could have been great, but it's restrained by so many things. That's it for this video. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping this channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.